Morning guys, good to see you again, welcome back to the channel. Well, that was a bit of a rush job. It's just after 6 AM, just after sunrise, and I just got out the van, hadn't even got the camera set up on the tripod, and the sun decided to shine through a little cloud base to my right here and illuminate these beech trees, and there's some fantastic shapes on these beech trees. So I quickly got the camera on, got the 70-200 on obviously, and managed to get an okay-ish composition. I think I've got a nice V-shaped beech tree to my right and then a series of beech trees leading away from it, and they were just illuminated lovely by the sunlight. Lasted about 30 seconds, but I did manage to get a composition. I think settings wise I was just going by the live screen and making sure it looked okay. F9, 1/10 of a second, ISO 100. I'm zoomed into about, what am I on? About 140 odd mil. It was a really quick composition while the sun was shining, and then just like that the sun's gone in and it's actually turned quite cold, so I've got my hat on, and there's quite a nip in the air this morning, but anyway, that's the first frame in the bag. Proper rush job. I haven't even done any B-roll or anything yet. The first thing I did was get the camera out, get it set up and shoot away, but didn't want to miss that opportunity, so fingers crossed. It looks all right on the back of the screen, so hopefully I'll be able to put it up now, guys. I hope you like it. What a rush about that was, but managed to get a nice frame, I think, I hope anyway. You'll have seen it by now. But the sun's just come out again. Quite really did catch me out, that did. But it's been raining and the sun keeps coming out, but oh, right. I just thought today, I've had a few questions lately about why I shoot in manual, how I shoot in manual, how I set up. So I'll go and find another composition now, hopefully. A bit more relaxed anyway, and I'll go through how I set up on the live screen and work out what settings I need, you know, ISO. Obviously I nearly always shoot in ISO 100, so that's that pretty much nailed on. But then how do I work out aperture and exposure time? So we'll go and find another composition and I'll quickly run through that for you. So I've come across this lovely scene, some nice light being cast across from my left hand side onto the left hand sides of these beech and oak trees. A lovely wide grass covered woodland drive, if you like, and at the end of the composition it's a nice light area. Sun's obviously coming through the canopy gap and really casting some nice light on the trees right in the distance, so quite a nice frame. Got a nice branch coming right over the drive from an oak, which is sort of framing the centre of the composition, so quite like this. So we'll jump onto the live screen and I'll show you my composition and how I get set up. Right, so just go through my composition quickly. Obviously, nice light area in the back of the frame, so that draws my eye straight down the composition. Like I mentioned, this nice oak branch that is just framing the end of the composition, so I quite like the way that stands out a bit. Obviously I've got a little bit of sky in there, but I can bring the tones down hopefully in Photoshop. And then obviously some lovely light being cast on the left hand sides of all these beech and oak trees, and it just leads your eye. Got a little bit of the grass drive in there still. Now I'll just hit the info and check my Instagram. Instagram looks okay, the peak's to the left, so that's fine. I focused, I'll just show you how I focus. So I focused on these trees here, so I'll just go in twice, and then I've manually focused on this tree here. Let's just get that pin sharp. That's about right, bit of wobble there, so we'll go off that. So I'm now focused in this area. Right, so let's get the settings up. So I'm on ISO 100. Now I can stay on ISO 100 because I'm on the tripod, so I'm not handheld. So that's fine, so we can eliminate that. ISO 100, it's the, I think this 5D body does go down to ISO 50 I think, but I always work in ISO 100, which obviously, as you guys know, the higher the ISO, the more noisier the frame gets. Not so much on these modern cameras nowadays, but anyway, so we're at ISO 100. Now I'm at an aperture of f11 because I want that depth in. Obviously I've focused here, but my focus should be pretty sharp from the second or third tree leading right off into the distance. Again, I could focus stack it, but just for this one frame, I'm just keeping it at f11, and I've focused on that tree there like you've seen. And I'm at 15th of a second exposure time. Now, as you can see, if I alter that ISO, which obviously allows more light onto the sensor, this live view screen will get more and more exposed. So I know that at ISO 100 everything is perfect, so we'll leave that. And again, if I want to change the shutter speed, the exposure time, and knock that up, obviously the faster the exposure, the less light is going to be allowed onto the sensor, through the lens onto the sensor. And obviously now, as you can see, because I'm at a faster shutter speed, less light is coming through the lens onto the sensor, and so the image is darker. Now I could overcome that by lowering my aperture and bringing that aperture down. As you can see, the screen's getting brighter again. So now I'm only at f5, so I've got less of a depth of field, so only that focus point probably will be sharp. Everything else will drop off pretty quickly because I'm at a shallow depth of field at an aperture of f5. So, because I want that depth, I'm going to take it back up to f11. Now it's gone far too dark, so now I want to bring my exposure time down. Let's just keep an eye on the screen. So about 15th, probably about, what's that, 20th of a second, and that's looking okay exposure wise. Now it is actually quite drafty, but because there's some big limbs and big branches on these trees, they're not really blowing about too much. So even at a 20th of a second, I'm not going to get much movement in these branches. If it was blowing an absolute hoolie, blowing a real gale, and I wanted to freeze frame, you know, capture the action on a really fast shutter speed. So let's put the shutter speed, say let's put it up to, I don't know, 250th, let's say, just to freeze frame the action. So as you can see, almost black screen. I want to keep my aperture at f11 to keep that depth. So I've got to increase my ISO to allow more light onto the sensor. And as you can see, that's about the right exposure there. But now I'm at ISO 1250th, at 250th of a second exposure time, this frame will probably be quite noisy, it'll be quite grainy. Not so bad on the 5D Mark IV because the ISO levels are really good on this body, and it can really take anything up to, I don't know, up to 3200 I'd shoot in. So if we go to that and make the shutter speed even faster, I mean, that's that's ridiculous now, but I could probably get away with that if it was handheld at 3200. Again, I could take a bit of noise out in Photoshop. So hopefully that's explained what ISO does. It sort of cheats the system and it allows more light onto your sensor. So let's take that back right down to 100 again. Obviously everything will go black now. So what I need to do now is bring my exposure time right down to about 20th again, wasn't it? Something like that. And there we are. So ISO 100, F11 to get me that depth, and 20th of a second shutter speed. I'm on the 10-second delay because my tripod's quite well raised again. On the touch screen, and as you can see, it's counting down. Everything's going to settle, and it'll take the exposure. And there we are. Just check that histogram again. Everything looks okay. Job's a good one. Well, hopefully that's helped some of you guys out. How I set my composition up, what I look for in the composition, and then my settings and how I work accordingly. Obviously, like I said, when I'm on the tripod, I can keep that ISO at 100. No problem at all, because I can allow the tripod to keep the camera still and have a really slow shutter speed, a really long exposure if needed. You know, you could go to 2 seconds or whatever if it's getting dark. You know, when there's hardly any light available, I can still overcome not using the ISO to my advantage by having a really slow shutter speed, a really slow exposure, 2-3 seconds or whatever. But if I was handheld and there's going to be a risk of some shake and whatever, obviously then I would need a faster shutter speed to eliminate any shake that would be seen in the frame, in the exposure. So I would up that ISO, increase that ISO to give me a faster shutter speed. I hope that makes sense. But any questions, just fire them in the comments below, and I'll answer them. But hopefully for you guys that have asked me why I always shoot in manual and not in aperture priority or shutter priority, that's hopefully answered your questions. It's just a case of I know that I am in total control of everything possible settings wise, and I can capture my frame exactly how I want it. So and the live view screen is pretty good. There's a little bit of exposure difference when you get it back home on the laptop, a little bit, but you can always fine-tune that in Photoshop. So I really do swear by that live screen. I absolutely love it. It really does help me out. But anyway, job's a good one. It's probably time for a cup of tea now, I reckon. But I'll pop this frame up anyway for you to have a look at, and make my way back to the van, I think. Well, it's definitely time for a brew now and a bit of breakfast. Hopefully that's helped you guys out. Let me know in the comments below if I've missed anything out, or if you do things a bit different. I love hearing from you guys and getting a bit of a chat going, so yeah, let me know in the comments below. And if you could remember to hit the thumbs up and give the video a like, let YouTube know that you're enjoying the channel content, that'd be much appreciated. And hit the subscribe button and that notification bell too if you're not subscribed yet. I'd really appreciate that. Thanks for all your support, guys. Probably haven't said it for a while, but really appreciate you watching these videos, and I love creating them. So yeah, the support is really good. Without you guys, this channel would be nothing. So just a quick thank you to you all. And yeah, home for a brew. Thanks ever so much for watching, guys. Have a great week. Take care. Catch up soon.